Hey everybody, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Today my guest is Chad Hayden, a local guy who has a detailing window tint business here in town. I've known Chad for a long, long time. In high school we worked at the local bowling alley together, and that's where I first met him and got to know him. And he's one of those guys that we worked together in high school, and he's around town, and we've always known each other, and we kind of like, two ships in the night that I'll see him downtown or something like that at a restaurant, or maybe, a band's playing somewhere, and I'll see him and talk to him for a few minutes. But I really haven't stayed super close with him. We've been casual friends. And he saw a post I put up last week when I said that I would like guests for the podcast, and he's like, "I'll come in and we'll talk about cars or business or whatever." So he comes in today, and we sit down and we go for a good 30-40 minutes talking about all that kind of stuff. And we hit pause. I needed to grab a drink, and he says, "Where do you think we should go from here? I can take off, and I haven't seen my kid, and I'd like to spend some time with him. And if it's short, it's short. No big deal, And I'm like, "Yeah." And we're kind of fumbling around with some ideas of how to end the podcast, in the next 15 minutes. And he says, "I have this I can talk about." And I said, "Well, that's okay. Let's talk about that." And I wasn't fully understanding what this was. And we turn the recorder back on, and he tells this amazing story of he had an addiction and how he got through it, and how his life's different, and all the stuff that he went through. And another 40-50 minutes passes, and I'm recording this afterwards, and I'm just completely blown away. So super powerful dude. I'm kind of humbled that I got to do this today. So without any further ado, enjoy.
Enjoy the podcast.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
So
Morning.
We doing another podcast, and you said you saw our stuff on there and said you want to come in. We've known each other, oh my God,
I'd say
high
probably
school.
I've been out 22 years, so I think I started working at the bowling alley in 9th or 10th grade, because you were moving on.
Mm-hmm.
So you trained me maybe 1 year. I think it maybe took you a little longer than that, but on the machines back
Right.
there. And then I don't know what you moved on to. I didn't know you that well
Right.
to know what you were doing.
I went to work and did construction for
Oh.
excavation and stuff for quite a few years, and then ended up starting, the business and stuff, and
Yeah.
going off and doing that. So
I was
it's-
thinking about that, to try to think about things to talk about that. I don't know if I put words in your mouth, but I thought we had a pretty good role model there in that department on
Oh, yeah.
if you were ever going to own your own business.
right.
He never wavered. Mike never wavered in anything that he did there. It was just the way it's done, and
Right.
it's follow this. And
This is the
and
way to do it,
flows.
period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
These
know
are-
I picked up some valuable lessons there.
Right.
Not so much in the mechanical department, but it's kind of surprising. I tell people, "Yeah, I was a porter down there." Well, what's a porter? Well, you're a mechanic on the
Right.
machines. They're not that sophisticated, but they're probably better now.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me they're the same ones, to be honest. But
Yep.
there's probably only so many ways you can pick up a pin or set it down or
Yeah.
any of that stuff. Well, it's just kind of funny that we worked there in high school, and then here we are,
Yep.
20 some years later. So how'd you end up starting your business? So you have a basically detail and
Yeah, the window tinting.
What? Window
I think
tinting?
it basically started there. I was raised by. My dad was a fanatic about cars. My uncles were fanatics. I can just remember back to when I was a kid that we'd be driving along and my uncle would get so excited. "Oh, look at that." What amazed me, they knew the years of things, of everything. And I'm like,
Right.
"Geez, that's pretty neat." Well, I ended up picking that up maybe in my early to mid 20s after you've been around some cars for a few years, and then I sold them for a decade for a couple dealerships in the area. You learn those things now.
Right.
Like now I can kind of
Right.
shoot and say, oh, that's a it's a 92 or a '02, or you remember when the bodies changed.
Right.
But that probably was what spurred me into a passion for cars. Now my middle son has it. He's always sending me pictures on YouTube of
Right.
some wild Jeeps or some Rams or just diesel trucks, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty sharp, So he's got the bug.
Did you learn how to do tinting somewhere? Is it something you just sort of picked up, or?
I think I was still painting BMXs hanging in my dad's garage. 'Cause, that was my car when you're 10 or 11. So I'd tear them all apart and paint them and make Huffies into Diamondbacks because couldn't afford a Diamondback.
Right.
So my cousin Eddie ended up getting his first car, and I couldn't tell you what it was, but he came to my dad's house and tinted his windows in it, maybe just the front two or something. I'm like, for some reason that clicked with me, and I'm
Really?
like, I'm gonna do that to my first car.
Sure.
Well, my dad gave me a Pontiac 6000 with 190,000 miles on it that he used to sell food with, and I bet you I tinted it 5 or 6 times.
Really?
And screwed it up a million times, and I don't know. I ended up going to Edinburgh for nursing school, and came home one summer, and there was a man that, and we're still great friends today, who had a shop where mine is at.
Mm-hmm.
And I met him at a softball game, and I knew who he was, and I said, could I come work for you this summer while I'm home? I can tint windows, or I can work, or whatever, just so I can make some money. And I ended up buying the business from him for $5,000 at the end of that summer. I didn't get the whole property or anything yet. I just bought that 5 years ago, so I own all of it now. And my parents weren't happy at all. They're like, what do you mean? What are you doing? Cleaning cars? You can't make a living cleaning cars. I said, I know that, but I have a different thing too.
Mm-hmm.
I have another fold to it that
Right.
I think if I really honed my craft and treated people fair,
Right.
that the average person buys 9 or 10 cars in their life. If I
Right.
got 100 customers, I'd be in pretty good shape.
Right. Every couple years, they're coming back for
Yep.
another.
And
Right.
my arm reach now is out to Rowlett, Gailton, Ulysses, Ridgeway, Johnsonburg. I'm just got great customers out in those areas, and they're constantly flowing through now. I mean, it's hard to. Most of my customers aren't even in Bradford for that right now.
Really?
It's really grown in the outskirts because there's just nobody out there.
Do you travel and do it, or does everybody bring it to you?
I
much
have.
easier?
I've done some real big commercial jobs. Big commercial jobs. Actually, I did the bowling alley.
Yeah.
4 summers ago. I've gone to Rowlett and done 10 cars in a guy's driveway on a Sunday with my son.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do more of that, but if you were 2 people, you'd have 2 of these places.
Right,
So
right.
I got to manage my time and just. They'll come. I've learned that
Right.
they'll come. I'd like to get closer to them, and I've told certain pockets of them, if you did get 8 or 10 buddies and it was worth my while,
Right.
I don't need much. I just need protection from the wind, and I'll
Right.
buzz down there.
So do you? So you start with the regular sheets of tint and then cut it out?
Yeah.
Like you don't have the pre-cut?
Nope, I do it such an old-fashioned way that, and it's so quick. People are like, "Geez, I tried that in my
Right.
driveway this weekend, and wasted $50, and
Right.
you just did it in 15 minutes and for 40
Right.
with the material."
Right.
So I could charge more for it, but I don't want to. Well, you're standing there 20 minutes. What am I going to do?
Right.
Ding you for $100? It's
Right.
I could, and you'd pay it, but I
Right.
don't want you have to. Somebody has to ask the wife every time they get a new truck. Can I get $100 for 40?
Right.
I'm not hurting anyone, and I
Right.
guarantee it as long as they own the car. So they'll usually call me, how much do I got to pay you to redo a window?
What's the worst thing to tint?
Corvettes, some certain models
The
of
big
those.
back window?
The side ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, actually, I did Mike's Corvette a couple years ago, and I don't know how much money I wasted doing. I didn't make anything on it, but Now I've learned if somebody has a really nice high-end car and I know I can't do it, or even if I can, I always say, look, I do it an old-fashioned way. It costs X. You can get a perfect job for probably twice the money, and they're like, man, that's really neat of you to say that. I'm like, well, I want your money, but I also want you saying good things about the job I gave you, you know. So I've learned to balance that pretty good. It's not worth it for me to have a lesson using all my film, and at the end of the day, I didn't do it right. So God gave me a lot of patience, but there are better people that can do a whole rear window in one piece. I'm not one of those, and I know that, so I don't charge for that.
So this is what I was wondering: is it skill or is it doing it and experience and just knowledge?
You know, I don't know. I think I've honed a pretty neat craft there. If I had to watch you go try it right now, you'd fumble your way through it. So
because I've tinted a bunch of my stuff, but it has to almost be perfectly flat. And anymore, I'm like, oh, it's just so much easier to send it down to you, and and I don't have to fight it.
Yeah, I don't know where it'll take me. I know it's provided me a really nice life, and now it amazes my parents. Now they'll be down there popping in or something, bringing me lunch or giving me a ride, and my parents will be like, I can't believe that guy's getting his windows tinted. He's 65, or that woman's getting her. It just, I'm like, I never know where it's coming from.
Everybody does.
Maybe somebody doesn't like the sun. I don't know.
How long have you been doing it now? How long you had the business?
I'd say off and on between selling cars. I bought that when I was 20, so I'm 40 now. So
Been doing it a while.
I think I tinted my first car when I was 16, so roughly 24 years of that.
Do you think you're done selling cars?
I never say never. Maybe when my kids are gone, because right now I basically trade my body for dollars cleaning them, and it is starting to wear a little bit on me. So I move slower now. But in turn, I appreciate it more, and I've really tried to get better at that too.
Does your wife works with you too, right?
No,
I thought
she works been at Zippo for 6 years.
Oh, for some reason I thought she worked with you.
No, she did do it on her own when I was selling cars. But
maybe that's why I thought.
I think it's tough for a man. Not that a woman can't do it, because she did, but I could see it wearing on her.
A lot of physical work.
It's a lot of physical work.
Right.
And if that was my bet, I made that bet. It wasn't fair for me to be sitting at a desk all day and knowing she's toiling down there just busting her butt. So I ended up leaving that and rolling the dice one more time. I think I've started that thing 4 or 5 times with 50 cents in my pocket. Bought a shop vac and found water and started making money, and
off you go.
Yep. And now I hopefully my kids don't want it. You know, they see how
hard it is to. It is amazing that people don't realize how hard business is. It's insanely busy.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to being your own boss. I mean, I get to be with my kids for all their sports stuff. That's my main motivation for it. I work when I want to work. And when I do, I get to work as hard as I want to work. I don't have somebody saying, hey, slow down a little bit. We got all day to do this. I'm not geared that way.
Get it done.
I'm geared to
move on.
Yep, move on, start the project, and try to do as many cars as I can in a day. So,
how many can you do in a day?
When my wife was with me, I think our record was like 14 or 15. Right now, I average 5 to 7, and then once the weather breaks, I'll be up in that 10 number probably most days of the week.
And that's a complete everything?
No, those are anything.
Just like a quick detail?
Yeah, from my $25 range, which I do a lot of weeklies for people, and up to the 100 maybe, or 75 is about my average ticket.
What's the worst thing you've ever seen?
No.
You got to get some gross ones coming in.
I just had one in there the other day. The guy popped in. I said, I got 2 hours with you, and 6 garbage bags full. 3 were garbage and 3 were clothes. And I go, look, I want your money, but I don't know what you want me. He's like, well, I'm going to trade it. Anything you can do.
Right.
You know, I said, well, here's the time I'm going to give you. I'm going to sweat my rear end off for that time frame. and that's it. And then I got to move on.
Right.
So
I know we get vehicles in every once in a while, and you're like, what happens in this vehicle?
Yep.
I can't even imagine having to clean it up. We just have to pull it in the shop and work on the outside.
Yep.
And you get in some, and there's barely room for people. The ones that kill me are the ones that there's barely room for people to get in the vehicle. There's shit on the floorboards stacked all over the place. It's insane. I feel for you a little.
So the funny thing is, when I bought that business, I got my first apartment. I think my wife had moved in with me, and I'd bought my first professional roll of tint. And it came with a video. Well, that video sat in the corner of my apartment for 3 years. I don't know what happened one night. I must have had enough beers in me or something. I popped it in, and it completely changed how I did it.
Right.
And I think I'd always known how the real professionals were doing it, because I was basically peeling the back off first, sticking it, and then trimming from the inside. Well, you don't have any leverage or any room in there, so it was always a dogfight. Well, this guy did it all on the outside and pre-cut it, peeled it, licked it, and sticked it, and I'm like, ding.
Right.
So
easy.
I immediately changed over that portion of it, and that's probably been the huge difference for me.
How long would it take you to do an average 4-door car?
Under an hour.
Really?
Yep. So, and my average ticket for that's like $100 to $140.
Which, that seems so worth it, because it would cost me like 4 temper tantrums,
Yep.
3 rolls of tint.
Yeah, I think even the parts
lose
store
my mind.
people now, if somebody comes in to buy it, they're like, just go call this kid.
Right.
You know, so
Just do it.
yeah, they're like, have you ever done it before? And they're like, well, no. They're like, well, you don't want to start today.
Right.
For the $140, let him do it.
Do the dealers ever have you do it?
Yeah.
Do they? Because it would seem like that'd be a super easy add-on to help sell the car.
Well, no, if you buy it and request it before you pick the car up. Hey, send it over there before I pick it up. I want Chad to tell me.
I see.
So only in that instance. Or sometimes I'll get some from like the body shops if somebody wrecked their car and blew out one window.
Right.
So even if somebody didn't like me, they have to use me. So it's kind of mended a lot of things from when I was selling cars.
Right. Do you miss selling cars at all?
No.
That seems like a tough racket.
It's gotten tougher, I think. I was at the tail end of the old times, I think, where it was a craft, and then you spent time with people, and they want to spend time with you. And now I think people's lives are busy. The internet's huge. You spend 5 minutes on there.
You know what things are worth.
You can educate yourself a little bit, and yeah, I don't think that's I don't miss that part of it. I miss the people part of it.
Could you make decent money selling cars? Could you? I've always wondered that. Like, I see people that have stuck with it their entire life, and it seems like they're doing well for themselves.
Yeah, I think my second year in Olean, I was at $102,000.
Really?
But it costs you. It costs you your life too.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. So you work basically on commission, is that what?
Yep, straight commission.
Really?
That keeps you hungry.
Really?
Yep. And I tried to tweak it a couple different ways. Sometimes I'd go on $1,000 a week draw, and then if you didn't cover that by some odd, usually you did, but that balance would roll over to the next month. So then you're behind the sucking hind tit on that, and the best way for me was just zero.
Right.
I don't want anything unless I go get it, and then you owe me all of it.
So how's the typical commission work out then? Like, do you get like a percentage? Is it a flat fee for car? Or?
Now it might be different. Now it might be more of a flat fee, and I think they're paying salesmen now a flat to. You can't expect a guy today to start out at zero with a couple kids. They're not going to stay there.
No.
So you've got to give them something to take home. And so in the same token, you probably lower the percentage of what they pay you on a car, or just used car you get $250, or new car you get $100, or
whatever it is.
Yep, and then they have bonus levels set up. If you hit 12 cars, you could pick up an extra 1,000 or.
So how many cars do you? This is all fascinating to me, because I don't know why.
It's not that fascinating.
But how many cars, like, in a day or a week, or how would you sell? Like,
It just depends on are you fighting Santa Claus? Is it school shopping season, or you
Right.
always could gauge? I don't know. I had some big months. I think I had 24 or 26 cars once or twice in that decade.
Right.
You know, you get up into those numbers, but typically 16 was a bonus level where I worked for the most time. So you usually tried to get to that number. You could pick up an extra $3,000.
So you're selling 3, 4, 5 a week ish.
Yeah.
Usually
yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then is everybody a pain in the ass as far as haggling and dealing, or are people pretty easy? Because I'm 100% the other way when I go to buy something. I know I want to pay, say, $10,000 for that. That's it. Like,
Yep.
okay, cool. It's
Yep.
10,000 or it's not.
It varies. There's some that are professional car shoppers. That
Oh yeah.
If I saw them, I'd go to the bathroom for 2 hours.
Right.
I'd go hide.
Just avoid.
Yeah, because you could get tied up with that person for potentially 3 or 4 days and watch your buddies
Right.
out on the lot making a lot of money while you're grinding away with someone that you know and you love.
Just chiseling.
And they're just beating the snot out of you.
Right.
And ironically, the people that you did make the most on, those were your best. Those were the greatest customers.
Right.
They never asked for anything, and when they did, you never minded
Right.
stepping.
It was all
up for
reasonable.
them.
And
Yep.
so, how much control do you have over the pricing, or is it all back room?
Yep, it's all set.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I guess what I meant was, so did they tell you like you could sell the car for $6,000? We have it set at 8. You have that much room, and anything below
maybe
6.
Deep into a career, I
Yeah.
got to that point. Yeah. I mean,
Where they
not
give you a
out of
little
the gate.
flexible.
Yeah. You know, here's what I got in it. You wanna give the dang thing away? Go give it away, but you're not gonna make anything.
Right.
Sometimes that would make you stronger, and sometimes it would make you weaker.
Well, that's what I was curious about. So, do you get paid off the percentage of profit, or do you get paid off the
Just
total
the
sale?
profit.
I see.
Just the profit.
So it'd behoove you to make sure that.
Yep. So if they had $1,000 in the car and you sold it for 4,000 or 5,000, you picked up $1,000 because you get 25% of that.
I see.
So it was.
It was up.
Those were nice ones,
Right.
you know. But today I think it's a lot different today.
Yeah.
Even less of that.
Well, even
You're
just
not going to give anybody really, unless if I still was in it now, another decade,
right.
they'd leave me alone and just
Right.
I'd have 10 years of clients,
Customers. Right.
so.
Right.
And then they'd be having children by now, and then you'd.
Right.
So you gotta put your time in. Most people today, I don't know, they have a premonition about themselves. You know, the hardest lessons I've learned in my life, and probably you've learned, is when I found out I wasn't who I thought I was.
Right.
You know, those are great.
It's reality.
Great humbling experiences, and you have to put in some time. You don't walk into those places and
Right.
make $65,000 a year.
No.
There's some work and
Well, that's the thing about everything is anything that you can make money on and good money on is a ton of work.
sure.
There's no easy way to there.
Yeah.
It's hours and hours and hours and hard work and
I think I'll be in there tomorrow. I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
a couple calls already today, so it's like I didn't really want to. I'm getting into
Right.
that portion where I'm like, I'd rather do 10 tomorrow instead of just 1.
right.
Go in there and fire everything back up for $25 for a really good customer of mine.
Right. Right.
That part of me is starting to just save a little bit in the tank.
Well, one thing that we realized, or I realized quite a while ago, was I don't know how many years ago it was, but we were working pretty much 7 days a week, trying to keep up. And it's like we've done this for a year, and we haven't caught up. Like we're never going to catch up.
Right.
Like, all right, let's just work 5 days a week.
Yep.
And if we have to, if it's an emergency, we'll work a Saturday or something, and
Yep.
let's enjoy the weekend.
Yeah,
And
you have to
life
enjoy
is so much
yourself.
better. And I always wonder, like, should you always work 7 days a week and kill? You know, that's kind of how I grew up and the way my dad is. Or those first few years when you're learning that lesson and you're doing it
Yep.
probably helps get you
Yeah.
going and
Yeah.
established, and there's probably no other way to do it. but-
I've done it, and I can do. I'm sure I'll be in that boat soon. So I'm kind of I'm in a calm period right now.
Mhm.
Would I like to be out there digging and clawing? But it doesn't behoove me to come and knock on John Anderson's door tomorrow. You're not going to let me clean your truck on a Monday for $100. It's so nasty out. And
Right.
so I'm not pushy like that.
Right.
If the phone rings, it'll ring. And
Great.
and
Well, you
then
build up enough of a base too that.
And there's stones I can go flip over if I needed $25 to put in the truck for gas or something. I've got 30 of those numbers. Hey,
Right.
can I do your truck today?
Right.
Well, geez, I called you for a month. You didn't want to do it. Now you want to do it. So I gotta
Right.
eat a little bit there. But for the most part, they've been with me for so long that
Just
it's
works.
a good relationship.
Just works.
I think they realize I'm only one person down there. I can
Right.
get to what I get
So
to.
did you come out of high school and you said you went to school for nursing, right?
Yep.
And never did that at all?
I worked at the Manor most of high school.
Mhm.
A couple nursing homes just on co-op or whatever.
You were just trying to meet chicks though, right?
well. There was always those in those programs. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So then you went to college and then
Yep.
got out and went right into.
Yeah, I was on a full ROTC scholarship, so they gave you the first year. Everything was a very big scholarship. Everything was paid,
Mhm.
like a full ride for a sport. I just really wasn't raised in a military environment.
Right.
My uncle served and my grandfather, but they didn't speak of it.
Right.
So, and you learn not to either.
Right.
And so I just didn't care for that portion of it. And once you finish your first year, they give you a freebie. Once you start your third semester, your sophomore year, you're locked in for 6.
Mm,
So I made the decision at that point not to continue with it.
I see.
So I came back home, went to Pitt for a year. The stupid thing is I need 14 credits right now to have just a general studies degree because I have anatomy, I have chemistry, I have all this
Right.
theater, I have all these
But do you want?
outlandish things. And
But did you want to do that? Do you want to do that stuff?
No.
So it wouldn't be
No.
a.
no, the only reason I would finish is so my kids could see that I did that and
Right.
hang that on the wall. I know what I'm gonna do. I'm
Right.
gonna drop dead holding a freaking garden hose down there someday, and I'll have been happy with that.
Right.
I don't regret what I do. I enjoy it. It's my day flies by, and
It's good.
then I still get to serve the public, and
Right.
I get to do a lot of things with my kids.
What is crazy is that I always get a kick out of. I just saw another business open up the other day, and the little niches that are actually, I mean, providing an entire income for your family and a life, and
Yep.
you just like you were saying with your parents, like you can't do
Yep.
this, but yeah, you can.
Yep, and I said, well, you guys raised me in this environment.
Right.
It's not my fault that I love that. And I wasn't even good at cleaning a car at that point. I don't think. I didn't know buffing or
Right.
anything, all the tricks until I bought that business, and that gentleman ended up hanging out for a year and
Showed you.
showing me how to
Right.
hustle and go put some flyers out. And
Right.
I remember doing that in the winter and then running into the Riddle House, and I'm like, what are we doing in here? He's like, we're going to warm up with a couple shots of fire water or something.
Oh,
And
no.
then we'd go right back out and pound the pavement, hand
Right.
out flyers, and sit and wait for the phone to ring. And then he'd show me the real things you need to know, especially for dealer type work.
How
you know.
how come he got out of it?
He ended up being my boss in Olean, where I sold
really?
cars for.
So he
a
went on
decade.
to do
He
cars?
called me up and said, "Hey, I'm the
Right.
boss over here. Get over here and
I see.
sell cars for me." And I'm like, at that point, I was like, "Yeah, okay,
Right.
I'll do that. And Mama can stay here and clean them, and I'll
Cool.
go do that." And kids came, and 10 years go by, and it was. Actually, my income drastically started to drop by $20,000 a year till it was down to 58 or 62, and it was like, at that point, it's not worth it. Because after taxes and everything, if you do the math for the hours that you actually work for what you bring home, it's about $3.80 an hour, and it's like, you know what, I'm gonna go.
I could go do less.
Yeah,
for,
I could have made, in my head every day I was like, God, I could have cleaned 4 cars today and at least made
Right.
something.
Right.
I'm walking out of here today after 10 hours with nothing.
Not seeing your family and missing everything.
So it just started to outweigh
Right.
what was important to me.
It's funny how having children changes everything.
Sure
It's
does.
amazing.
It's probably saved my life a couple times.
How many kids you have?
3.
3?
Yeah.
All boys?
No, 2 boys and a girl.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, the older one, he's getting ready to graduate, and I think he's going to go to Pitt.
Really?
The middle boy, I'm with him all the time for wrestling, so he's.
And you're the coach, right, for wrestling?
I'm not his coach now. He's at varsity now.
Okay.
So I'm still at junior high.
Okay.
So I have a nephew there who's very talented.
So
I'll
how many?
ride it out with him and.
Really? How many kids are in the team?
Yeah, I think
It's a wrestling
I have
team?
20 at the middle school, and I think right now we have maybe 11 or 12 at varsity.
Mhm.
So,
Is wrestling staying as popular as it always been, or getting more popular? Or?
you know, it's funny. You go into a gymnasium on a Saturday anywhere around here, and it's full.
Really?
It's packed, and just seems to be for some reason in that 7th and 8th grade year, if there isn't a lot of support, we seem to lose kids at that juncture. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We have this conversation all the time. Kids are getting their interaction on their video games, where you used to have to run outside to talk to you. I don't want to sit home and play Mario Brothers
Right.
all by myself and not talk to anybody. Well, now I can.
Right.
So I don't think kids are running around in the neighborhood beating snot out of each other, even in a healthy manner.
Right. Because what I was wondering was, there's exactly that. So you have the kids, the classic video game syndrome thing that
Yeah.
everybody talks about, which is real, and then you also have, but like the UFC's never been more popular.
Yeah.
Sports in general has never been more popular. It seems like I could see where there's probably a drop off from that, but there's also a peaked interest of,
I
if
don't
I
know.
want to.
I don't know. I can't really count on too many kids I could look at and say, that kid would enjoy whipping the snot out of that kid.
They don't have that.
It doesn't matter to them, and it's not their fault. It's just the way society is. There's
Different
just
mentality.
not value there for me to show that I'm stronger than you, or
Right.
maybe I'm popping off, and you're not allowed to
Right.
straighten that out.
Right.
Where when we were in school, you either got snot beat out of you, or you shut up.
Right.
I
And
learned to shut up.
It's really funny. Like, I never wrestled. I always wish I would have now, but watching things like the UFC is the one I love the UFC.
Yeah.
But it's there could be like no pure form of
it.
comparison or testing. So it's one person against one person, and there's no bullshit.
Yep.
Like it's 100% either you did it or you didn't.
I assimilate it to you and I are cavemen. There's a dead deer right there.
One of
Who's
us
getting
gets it, right?
One of us is getting it. How are we
Right.
doing that? We're probably wrestling for it.
Right. And that's what is going to push society forward too, is the strong guy
Yep.
constantly wins, or the whatever that wins the
I
contest.
think that sport, I know for me personally, just teaches you how to cope.
Mm-hmm.
When the boss is screaming in your face because you did screw up, you have to know that you did, and take that.
Well, I
and
think-
then go reapply and
Right.
get better at what your job is.
And I think there's a lesson that most people don't learn until way later in life that probably wrestlers learn early, is you gave it all you had, you lost.
Yep.
It sucks. It really sucks, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like, you can choose to get better at the things you were not good
Yeah.
at during that, and
Or not.
try again. You know,
Yeah.
so
Or not, and keep getting snot bombed
Right.
out of you.
get 2 choices. So it's pretty interesting.
Yep. It's a,
But I've been wondering if the wrestling is starting to fade away, or because I know like the football, they're having trouble getting kids for football
Yep.
anymore, and
yeah, I
it's
don't
just-
know what the future will be for any of this stuff. I really don't.
I mean,
It's-
are we gonna
it's
have
scary?
virtual sports? So you just stay at home and play your. Well, you could use your phone or your Xbox to join the team, quote
Yeah.
unquote. You know,
Yeah. I
it's
don't
crazy.
know. And parents are busy. It's a lot of little factors.
Right.
You know, there's really not one. If there's a 2-person household, both people probably work.
Right.
You have to.
Almost all do. Yeah. Yep.
So to run someone somewhere and get them to a practice or get them to here, get them there most of the time, that's probably tough for
Right.
most people.
Right.
Unless you were brought up doing that and you realize what it takes and you then
Right.
gear your life towards doing that. Which
So both your boys wrestle?
nope, the older one switched to basketball.
Oh yeah.
So, but then he just had major hip surgery like 9 weeks ago.
Oh.
So, and then I'm due next. I go next week to
For a hip?
schedule mine. Yeah. Yep. I've been running, I don't know, a couple 100,000 miles on a torn cartilage at the top of my femur. So
Is it a surgery or a hip replacement or what?
no, if I wait, it potentially would be that, and I'm probably gonna wait. So I do like 200 flights of stairs every morning, and that seems to not bother it. But if I went and ran right now, I'd feel it. So I just tweaked my lifestyle to prolong having to do this because being self-employed, it's 6 to 8 weeks before you could even put weight on it.
Right.
I can't afford to do that.
How are you off for that?
Yeah, how
right.
am I going to do that? I'd have to refinance my house and tuck away something in a savings and just
Right.
draw out of my own rear end,
Right.
and then pay that back.
And then
So
just be screwed going forward for a while?
I'm in a little bit of an unfortunate situation, but I'm trying to really tweak it so that
Can make it work
it's
somehow?
not making my life miserable right now.
Right.
It's like a level 1, and I pound the snot out of it, and I just don't do the things that make it flare up.
Right.
And I don't take any ibuprofen or anything for it, so I always know where it's at.
Well,
I always know.
So I've been hearing like taking ibuprofen every day for something like that is actually worse. That it causes inflammation
Yeah,
if you take
possibly.
a consistent regimen every day of it. So so with all that hip pain, you never got into pain pills or anything like that to get
Well, I
through?
did.
Really?
I was in a car accident, I'd say probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, 9 years ago with a customer. And we got rear-ended down by Perkins. Lady put the trunk right behind my ear of a $45,000 Avalon.
Oh.
Actually, the driver, he looks at me, goes, hold on. He must have saw her in the rear view. And as I turned, I'm like, what? And whack! And I've never been hit like that in my life. Did I get whiplash? I'm not sure. Anyway, went to the doctor, ended up having 2 herniated discs. Well, what do? They put you on pain medicine.
Right.
Well, I never took a pill a day in my life. Had a bunch of beers,
Right.
and I couldn't tell you from when it was 4 a day till 5 years in, I had a full-blown opiate addiction.
No shit, man.
I was taking 20 a day, and that was at the peak of it.
So what does that do for you? So what's the I've never
It's hard to explain it. You really have no highs or lows. You're just
So is it-
on all the time.
Is it like a physical feeling, like you were trying to get rid of the pain, or is it something else mental? Because a few years ago, when I burnt my face really bad there, and the heater blew up on me, I don't know if you remember that at all.
I know.
I went to the hospital and my face was just smoked, and they gave me morphine. And as soon as that shit hit, I'm like, oh, I can see why people like this shit. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. Like,
Mine was probably real gradual because I was on such a small amount for 6 months, 8 months, and then you go in, you need a little more. So they bump you up to a stronger dose and give you more pills. And it's such a problem in our country right now. And so anyway, my wife being steadfast and tough as she is, she cornered me one day mowing the yard and said, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not going to watch you kill yourself. And of course I raised my hand at that point. I was like, oh, guilty.
So were you?
Caught, busted, whatever you are at that point.
So what were the effects on her side? So I mean, she obviously knows you better than probably anybody.
Yeah.
So
Probably financial. Because I was probably sneaking around buying them when I also, I'd get 120 from the doctor, and in 6 days they'd be gone.
Oh.
So she'd hide them in the house. If she went to the Unimart, I'd tear that house apart.
How?
And I'd take 20 of them right there, and she'd come home and count them, and then there'd be a fight, and that's like, what are you? And I'm looking at myself, what are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing?
Well, what?
But in that moment with those things, you don't care.
How long was 120 supposed to last you?
30 days.
Oh fuck! And they're gone in 6 days.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. So there was this new treatment coming out for what I was going through called Suboxone or methadone, which was for heroin addicts, but they were finding it to work for someone in my situation. Well, she called 4 or 5 different places, not even in Bradford. There wasn't a place. All Du Bois, St. Mary's. They were on 6-month waiting lists. She's like, well, he doesn't have 6 months. I remember listening to her. She's like, it's Friday. He needs to be to work Monday. She's like, I'm begging you, can you please see him? So this one doctor ended up taking me in, and it's very expensive to get treated for this. It was $250 cash every month, and plus the medicine was $465.
Gee.
Well, it's what it is synthetic heroin. They chemically engineered a man-made heroin. Well, it's basically for heroin addicts because you can die from a heroin withdrawal. So I'm on that for 4 years. First 2 years in, everything's going great. Buy my building, money in the bank. On the outside, it seems if
Going well.
geez, everything. Look, he's doing well.
So
Inside,
you were on that straight, like it's like a prescription you were taking. Okay.
Yep, and it's very strong. It's very strong. Runs you right up and just keeps you
Right there.
running high all day. Like where I'd run around that shop and just be, and people see me now and they're like, boy, you can see a difference in you. You're slow.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm not running on that octane anymore. So first 2 years, everything's going good. Second 2 years, I'm sliding back into the things that I was doing with the other stuff. And I'm like, what am I doing? What is the end game here? Jail, death, divorce, lose all of this? A pastor shows up at my shop. Get her windows tinted or something. We start talking. I tell her what I'm going through, and she starts educating me on Jesus. Well, at that point, I'm like, whatever. You don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
I don't know when it happened. I get a bonk on the head when I realize I'm working to pay for this. And I don't even know if I felt it anymore. So I decided to quit it cold turkey, which they say you can't do. Like 0.4%. I haven't met anyone yet that did it. I didn't seek Jesus at that moment. I'm just like, you know what? I better do this right now.
Right.
I'm going to be the one in control of it. Told 20 of my closest friends and family, here's what I'm doing. They say it can't really be done, but I'm jumping off on X day. I've got X amount left. When that's over, I'm jumping off. Well, 5 days into that, actually yesterday I was 22 months cold turkey. Don't even want to put an ibuprofen in my body,
Really?
Which is weird. It's just something that's how strong I am mentally with it now. So it was a 52-day process, long story short. 5 days in, a buddy of mine stopped and he knew what I was going through and he's like, hey, you don't look too bad. And I said, I don't feel too bad. I know something's coming. He's like, oh, I know something's coming. He's like, for everything I've read about it, you're about ready to go through hell. Isn't it that night I get home from work, sit down on the couch and I feel it coming and it leaves your hips because it's synthetic. It absorbs differently into your body. It's in every cell that you have. Where a Vicodin is it's more of a not natural, but it's a different form of the opiate, so your body processes it differently.
Okay.
Not that coming off of that's easy either.
Right.
I did that too. When I would run out, I'd go through those, and that's much violent and shorter. Where this was 52 days of just just pure hell. So in night 5, I'm laying in my bed and I'm like just starting the turns. You flip over and over and over in your bed. It's like the devil has you by your toes, and it's not sleeping tonight. I didn't sleep normal till, I don't know, 14 or 15 months into it. I would go to bed at 9 at night and wake up at 11:30 that night, and I'd be like, really? 20 months into this thing, or 12 months into this thing, I'm still have some of these lingering effects of what I had done to myself. So it was like day 5 through 15 was really the storm. Mm-hmm. And I had a buddy say, one of these days you're gonna put your feet down on your floor and it's gonna get a little easier. Mm-hmm. You just got to get to the top of that mountain. And through that, my mother was coming over and rubbing lavender oil on my feet and all this voodoo bullshit. Right. And I started listening to violent music. And not that I never did. I didn't listen to Pantera and that, but I had to have it really loud. And now my son and I, all we do is listen to Five Finger Death Punch. Uh-huh. And I never even heard of them before. And now we know almost, 75% of their songs. And I end up, out of all the tattoos I got, I ended up getting this on the morning I woke up, and was the last morning I never took that again. So I got that right around my 1 year mark. And it says only the strong survive, and that's one of their songs, Battleborn. But pretty soon you start feeling a little better. I mean, I was soaked in sweat most days, freezing cold, diarrhea for 30 days. I don't know. I didn't eat for the first 40 days of it, it seemed like, because you have no energy. Mm-hmm. And you can't even walk up one set of stairs, and everything at my house is stairs. So it's kind of funny looking back now. It's like night 5. I was called night 5 because that was a big battle right there. It was like God came, and I could see him fighting the devil in my bones. He's like, you sleep. I got this, mother effer. And I'm like, that's good, because I'm smoked, I didn't know what was going to happen, but that's just what I saw. If I could feel blood in my eyeballs, I could see good and evil fighting, and I woke up that next morning, and it was like, holy cow, I'm getting there. Mm-hmm. He took that from me, and now we're heavily involved in our church, and I can't deny what happened there. It was such a surreal experience that I don't know. I'm still deciphering through it, but
so let's back up. That was the 5th day.
Yep.
That you decided.
Cold turkey.
So
I hadn't had anything in 5 whole days. So
it was starting to get bad, though, is what you're saying.
Yep. That's when the withdrawals really kicked in. It must have. And I must have been out of my system. It must have taken 5 days, and then it racks your body. Well, it runs you down to like a cell phone to 1%, mm-hmm. and then that takes 52 days. Well, then you wake up and you're at 2%, and then 100 days go by, and you're finally at 100. And I put the track shoes back on, and I don't want to say I got addicted to training, but mm-hmm. man, I felt so good. I had all this extra gasoline, and now I train every day like a madman.
Really?
Yeah, I burn off all this extra steam at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm good.
Good. So what? Let's go back to day 5 there. So day 5, you're in hell.
Yep.
And were you on the verge of like, screw this, I'm not doing this?
No, it's just funny. I mean, maybe that's God doing that too. He just takes it from me. I don't know, but that was never a thought.
So whatever you experienced there, it gave you some comfort that you could power through the rest of the way.
It seemed like after that day, even though the next 10 were still battles physically, mm-hmm. they weren't as bad as that one. That was the.
So did you get? You said the pastor came and you talked to originally. Did you get involved in the church at that point, or was it
No,
much after?
much after.
Really?
Much after. Yep. I think we've been a regular now for maybe 5 months.
Really?
And different family members come now because they've seen it. I mean, actually, a film company came from LA last summer and heard about what happened to me through our church and filmed my son and I at the shop for like 5 hours on a Thursday. Came to my house, filmed my wife and the other 2 kids, and we did a segment at the church for an hour with my other pastor. I always tell people it took 2 preachers, 52 days, and $50,000 to undo 1 Vicodin.
Really?
If you think it's a joke and you think it's something that you want to mess around with, it's not. It's not. So ultimately, I'd like to talk to kids in 7th or 8th grade, and say, listen, if you have to have a knee surgery or a tooth pulled or something, please be very aware. Just don't take this. You're gonna be fine in a day.
Right.
You don't need 3
Just
months
suffer
worth of this
through
shit
today.
Yeah, because I don't know what the time frame is when you do get addicted. I couldn't sit here and say I was 6 months and 4 days in, I woke up and I was addicted to it. It's a slippery slope once you start.
That's what I'm curious about. So you have a prescription.
Yep.
Take 2 a day. How does that go from? Does one day you take 3 and the next day you're like, it hurts a little more, I'll take 4, and then every day you just want 10?
Your body builds up I don't want to call it an immunity to it, but a resistance where those 2 aren't enough. So you take 4. 3 months later you take 6 a day. No big deal. And so on and so forth. And next thing you know, you're supposed to have 4,000 milligrams maximum a day of that, and I was putting 20,000 milligrams of it through my system.
Egads.
Highly likely that I probably should have died a couple nights in my own bed from that from the toxicity in your liver and your kidneys.
Really?
Now, and I've asked. Actually, it's kind of funny. My doctor called me 14 days in because I missed my appointment on purpose. And he's like, hey, you missed your appointment with us yesterday. I said, you know what's funny? You've never called me in 4 years. Never. 20 hours after missing an appointment, you call me? I go, I'm really sick right now because I'm cold turkey. And he's like, oh, don't do that. He's like, it's just not designed to do that. I said, well, I'm doing it. I'm not taking another step down your path. I've given you $20,000 in 4 years, and I'm sicker 14 days ago than I was when I walked in your effing door.
Right.
How do you explain that? I said, I think it's because you come in with a brand new Mercedes every 11 months.
Right.
I'm not an idiot.
Doesn't it seem a little crazy every time you go to the doctors, they just push medicine at you?
Not to me. It's so powerful when you can go in there and say, even when they did my MRI, which you got to inject dye in there, and once they saw that it was tore, what do you need for pain? I go, and I didn't tell them at that point. I said I don't take anything for pain unless it has Miller Lite written on it.
Right.
I said I'll on a real bad day I'll have 2 or 3 of those at night. Sometimes I'll have 6 if this thing was.
Right.
It was really singing in the summer on me, so I thought surgery was going to be really imminent. And now I've got it to a point where I don't think it's not that urgent.
Not that bad.
No. It's never going to heal. It has to be surgically repaired.
But, so was the hip injury from the crash?
No.
It was
from long distance running my whole life.
So the injuries from the crash went away.
Yep.
But you stayed on.
Yep.
Okay.
It's funny. You run into some really smart people that know about just life in general, and they're like, a doctor will keep you sick if you want to stay sick. And I'm like, that's pretty powerful.
Right. What seems really weird to me is I've gone into the doctors a few times. I was convinced I had throat cancer once. I was fairly certain I was having a heart attack once, a few other things. And at the end of the day, it just turns out I was really stressed out.
Yeah.
Like the throat one, I was clenching my throat all the time. I was getting pissed off, clenching my throat.
Huh.
And you go in and you do all the tests, and they're like, "There's really nothing wrong with you." And props to the doctor for going, "Are you under a lot of stress?" And I'm like, "Yeah, got quite a bit going on right now." And he says, "Are you clenching your teeth during the day?" And like, and he goes, "I think that's what you're doing, and you're stressing your neck out." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And as soon as you know, oh, it's just stress, then the next day I'm like, "Oh, I do that."
Yeah.
But immediately he's like, "Here's some medicine. Take this." And it's like,
Yeah.
no, dude, I know now. I know what it is.
Sure.
Like I don't need that. And I'm sure some people do if you have some sort of chemical imbalance, but that's what drives me bonkers about this is there wasn't a test for a chemical imbalance. It was like, "Oh, this really sucks. Well, here's some medicine
Yeah.
to make your brain feel better."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's scary.
It's so weird.
And you know, it's money.
Right.
What's the root of everything? It's just dollars.
Right.
So, what my question was, what is the benefit of a doctor? Before I got my first Vicodin, never even took an X-ray.
Right.
How do you hand a
Right.
Chad Hayden who sells cars and sits at a desk all day this,
Right.
knowing what its potential is?
Right.
How irresponsible is that? And my wife and mother sent letters into this particular doctor. He confronted me with them one day at the peak of my pill addiction. He's like, "What do you say about these?" And I'm like, he's like, "Do you have a problem?" I'm like, "No, I don't have a problem." He's like, "Well, I really can't talk to you about those then. Here's your," and I'm like, whew, looking back
fuck?
now, it's like, what's the motivation there? Is there,
Right.
I don't want to say kickbacks, but what? I just, you learn quite a bit. And now I try to be active in telling this particular story. I don't do as much maybe as I could of just blaring it over the radio, because you don't
Right.
really change your life unless you want to change it.
Right.
And I wanted to change it. I knew what the end path was going to be.
Right.
My wife and my kids were going to be watching me from a different house.
Right.
And I didn't want that. They didn't deserve that. And I just knew that I was in a place that I didn't ask to be in either.
Right.
Am I responsible for it? I say partly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't tell you the day that I switched over and became a full-blown opiate addict. You know. And then that film company, they were like, "Well, how come you didn't turn to heroin?" Which is the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And I just attribute that to probably the generation I grew up in. I didn't think about it. I go, I just never crossed my mind. And not to take away from families that have lost young people. It's just different. I don't understand it.
Yeah, and I feel like our generation is pretty much drink anything, smoke anything, but that needle stuff.
Yeah, I
Nah. Like that's
most people,
that's next level stuff.
Aren't you afraid of needles? And then the next thing you know, that's what they're doing. And it's like, very bizarre. Are we tougher than them? I don't know. That just wasn't an option for me. If I didn't have my medicine for 3 or 4 days, I just sat there and suffered in my own piss and shit until I got some. You know? And it's a vicious, vicious cycle.
That's
now I have everything. I'm at such peace. My whole house is in line. The relationships are unbelievable. I mean,
So let me ask you a question. So maybe you weren't ready for it then. So obviously you got involved in the church.
Yep.
And it sounds like that's given you structure and direction. Do you think you were missing that before? Like if you would have been, let's just say you were involved before that crash.
I was going to church very sporadically during those times, but I'm not even sure why I was going.
Really?
For show, maybe for my kids. What little brain cells I had at the moment to at least do that.
Why do you go now?
Now it's a completely different experience. Now I'm just sharpening my sword in there.
Really?
We're a sponge in there. My daughter loves it. It's just a really healthy thing for us.
Sure.
And I don't push it on my friends, but at the same token, they're like, their eyes they explode. They're like, "What the hell's going on with you?" And they're like, I drive the church van now on a cycle once a month, and I pick people up downtown with it.
Right.
Sometimes I go to 2 church services on a Sunday and they're like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, honestly, I don't have any idea.
Right.
I just know that this happened to me, and here's where I'm at now.
Right.
I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Because I feel I willingly went down to the devil's den, knocked on that dirty son of a bitch's door, and dragged him out and said, let's go. We're settling this right now. Either you're winning or whatever else is winning, but
Right.
I'm not going another day in my life down this path with this particular medicine. So, I don't know, it's such a bizarre story. But then people in the medical field, you know, like that particular doctor, even the girl that come and did the film, she was like, and they're not done with that. That's a documentary.
What's that for? Where's that going?
I don't know what they're doing with it. To be honest with you, they found people in the area that have gotten through drug addiction. Mine was just unique because I never went to an AA meeting. I didn't do anything that you're supposed to do. I buckled down and sweated out in my own stinking shop every day because I had to work.
Right.
And drug my ass home some days at 1:30 in the afternoon because I didn't have anything left.
Right.
And went right to bed. So they found other stories, other good stories and I think they're trying to show those that if you can find something that makes it worth it, there's a great life on the other side of this stuff.
Sure.
But you got to be willing to go swim down in your own crap for a few days, you know.
So was there something specific besides your wife being like, okay, Charlie, this is enough of this, or were you going through
There
a
was
period?
there were a lot of factors. The money.
Okay.
I'm working twice as hard to pay $700 a month. To be honest, what am I taking away from my
Right.
family's dinner table?
Right.
What could I have
Right.
if I didn't do that? So that was a factor. And another person in my life said, our kids are going to look over our casket someday. And they're going to say one or two things about you.
Mm-hmm.
They're either going to say, man, we had a great dad. Took us everywhere, did everything, worked his ass off. He had this thing. It didn't kill him, but caused a lot of problems. Potentially, they could say that there's a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, now look at what they're going to say. They're going to lean over that thing and say, that's the toughest son of a bitch we ever met. And we don't really know why he had this thing, but we do know that he conquered it.
Right.
Because everyone wanted to talk to him about it.
Right.
And we saw it. It was real. It was tangible. He goes, how cool is that? And I'm like, that's pretty neat.
It's pretty wild, man.
It is. It's been a really wild journey. And I don't know what the end result is now. I get to be involved with these really good men in town that do this Project Serve. And say a single mom needs to move from somewhere to somewhere, and she sought out one of us. We just have a quick powwow, and we flood that house with 12 of us and 5 pickups, and in 1 hour we have her moved.
Right. So let me ask you a question. And I'm not taking away from the religious side of anything, but did you have any like strong group or support at all up until then? I mean, did you? Because here, and this is why I say this, and this is something that I've noticed a lot, is people spend a lot of their life going through and not really having close friends, tight groups, and I think when you get into a situation like, especially everything you went through, it's probably you and your wife battling most of this out alone together-ish.
Yeah.
And finally, when you have a little bit more of a collective group around you, does it
I think
keep you a little?
when I told the 20 people, I'd say 20, it might have been 12, it might have been 25, what I was going to do, that put me in a corner where I was going to be accountable, where someone was texting me every hour
And
or
making
popping
sure,
into
right.
the shop, hey, how you doing? I'm in there just soaked, and like, have water, or you're going to get through it, just hang in there. You know what? Most people were like, what day are you at?
Right.
How many hours, or
Right.
what month are you at? Or so it kind of became a neat thing.
What I wonder about is if a lot of people that are in situations like that, and they don't want to, for whatever reason, they don't want to head the religious path. There's got to be a zillion things, even just reaching out to friends and kind of trying to get a group around you a little bit. I mean, I realize that there's different levels of everything, but
I'd say that my doctor and I kind of got into a little argument about that. I said, you're not tough enough on people. You could have easily said, Chad, here's 4 of these.
right,
Don't come back. You didn't do that. You just keep doling it out. And he said something along those lines. He goes, most people that come here don't have what you have in that house or around you.
right,
He goes, they've burned those bridges. They've stolen from those people. They've wrecked everything. And I said, I'll give you that argument. I said, I can't speak for that. I said, but I know what I do have, and I do have a lot of support.
mm-hmm.
So did any of them really understand it? Probably not. You don't really know it unless you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is probably a problem with the epidemic now. Most parents don't know the drug game.
Right. Well, I guess so. If you have a friend, family member, somebody that's in this, it really was up to you to have the epiphany that
Yes.
I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
It's.
And I don't even know why. Sometimes I'm like, wow, why am I one of the so few? I think maybe I'm supposed to go plant seeds with other
Right.
people and say, I'm not going to change it today. Here's just what happened to me.
Right.
Take it for what
And
it's worth.
What's the worst that's going to happen by telling that story? Only good things.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
There's no bad.
Yeah.
So-
I don't know what the end result is going to be with it,
That's cool, man.
other than getting it out there
Right.
like this. I'm not ashamed of it. It knows no class. It knows no race. It doesn't care. It's the devil, and he just wants to wreck you.
And what's funny is I didn't know any of this. I honestly was completely out of the loop. I didn't.
Most people don't. There's actually, and I'm not plugging it, but my testimony from my church is on YouTube. It's just under Chad Hayden talks about his transformation
Mm-hmm.
at Open Arms. So it's a 19-minute and 20-second video that basically
What we just talked about.
what we just
Sort of,
talked about. Just I can tell the story 100 times because it's exactly what
Right.
happened,
Right.
And every day I wake up, I'm like, is it gonna fade away? Is it? And it doesn't.
So what's
I'm
happened?
so blessed right now.
So what's happened with your wife since then? So this is, I'm always curious about the other side of this. So
Yeah.
she knows you have some sort of issue,
Yep.
probably really well.
Yep.
And then one day you're like, all right, I'm getting through this. We have 52 shitty days coming.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna tell her. I wanted to surprise her.
Right.
But a friend of mine was like, you need to tell her because she's gonna need to carry the house. I go,
Mhm.
what do you mean? She's like, she's gonna need to know why you're laying down at 1:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
So I told her, and she was, maybe she didn't understand it either, but she was as supportive as she knew how to be, I guess she'd say. If I was weak and I was banged up, I go, you're going to have to leave me be. Don't ask me to do laundry. Don't ask me to do anything. If I offer to do it, that just means I have a small flicker of energy. Other than that, this is what I've got to do to get through this. And she was huge in that she let me do that.
Right.
She let me come home at noon or 3 or whatever,
Right.
take a smoking hot bath and just go to bed and get ready to fight.
Right.
Just get ready to fight. So, yeah, I don't know. I sometimes pinch myself that that 0.4%, whatever that small number is a terrible number. That's a terrible number. That's
Right.
why nobody can come off of this shit.
Right.
Because it's so difficult. You get to that day 5, I promise you, 99.6 people
Well, that's what.
call up their doctor or their drug dealer and say, "Holy, no way, I'm not going another minute,"
Right.
and they slip.
Right.
So, and then they never want to get back to another day 5.
It's too hard.
Yep,
Way too hard.
way too hard, way too hard.
That's bananas, man.
Yep. Yeah, most people wouldn't know because you don't smell it. It doesn't make you all googly-eyed. You don't trip over anything. Actually,
Right.
there's no change. It's the Jekyll and Hyde. look exactly the same. That's what makes that chemical very dangerous, because a parent wouldn't know
Right.
that their kid is addicted to an opiate like in that form.
Right.
Heroin, possibly.
Right,
I can't
right.
speak for that. But as far as a pill or this form was in a film that just went under your tongue and up into the clouds 40 minutes later. And just hang tight there until you take your second one in the day. You
Wow.
only needed 2 of
So-
those in a day, where you needed 20 Vicodin. To give you an idea what the strength difference was.
So that's something else I'm really curious about. What is the feeling that you're after? What is that? Like, is it
I don't know.
is it like a,
Euphoric, I guess, of some
Right.
mild form. I don't know.
I mean, is it like you feel more energy, like you're
Yeah.
you're
For me, it did
wired
that.
sort of
Yeah.
deal, or
Yeah, not wired to a jittery. Just I could clean 15 cars a day.
just go?
Put it in perspective, I guess, instead of 6 or 7 now, and I'm gassed.
Right.
So I'm running on clean energy now, is what
Right.
I call it. It's my own gasoline. I know
Right,
what it is.
right,
And
right.
if it peters me out at 5 in the afternoon or 10 o'clock at night, I know it's mine, and it's
Right.
true, and I'm not wearing a mask anymore. I'm not sneaking around and lying and being a piece of dog turd, because
Right.
that's what that stuff does to you. You
Right.
get really good at being a magician.
The other thing I'm curious about was everybody's reaction when you told this story, or you would tell somebody about this, or when you know, the people closest to you that you said, hey, I have a problem, this is the problem, and I'm going clean. Was the reactions better or worse than you were expecting? Because I'm assuming that you build up in your mind, like, fuck, if somebody finds out about this,
You know,
they're gonna
that
think I'm a
just
piece of
really
shit.
Wasn't a
Really?
concern of mine, and I don't know why. Because
Really?
I've had other pockets say, maybe you shouldn't be so open about this story. You're a small business owner,
Mhm.
and I said, yeah, I guess because they would be like, their first gut reaction is gonna be, oh, he was a junkie.
right?
I'm okay with that, because I got here.
Right.
So you're not going to take anything away from me, I promise you, with whatever you perceive.
What I was wondering there was, I think a lot of times you worry, especially the people who are saying, that if you tell somebody something like that, or you come out and you're like, hey, I have this issue,
Yeah.
you're really expecting the worst, and most of the time you get the best from
You
people,
do.
where they're
Yeah, you
super
do.
supportive
That's
and like,
funny
holy
you say
shit,
that,
dude,
'cause
like,
now I've had that argument with that same person. I'm like, I've continued down this path, and I haven't had one bad reaction from
Right.
anybody.
Well, I
They
think-
said, well, gee, you piece of dog shit. I can't be your friend. You were
Right.
this. Nothing. It's absolutely nothing but love and affection.
well, it's because you're speaking truth
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So when you tell that story, it's 100% truth. It doesn't feel like you're hiding or skirting
Yeah.
something. Or
No, it's about as raw as you can. It's about as raw as you can get. It'll be interesting to see what
Right.
happens on here tonight.
right? No, dude,
we're
that's-
taking diesel engines, and we're trying to help people transform their lives. Or it's funny when I tell anyone, they know someone.
Mhm.
That's how close it is.
right.
A son, a daughter, an aunt, an uncle. Somebody died from it. It's right,
Right.
here. It's
Right.
it's right here.
And this is exactly, there's something funny that happened here. So, for the people watching on the Facebook feed, we stopped one and started the other one, and I completely screwed it up when I started it. I started it on the wrong page. For the people that are just listening to the thing, you probably don't even realize we changed directions, but we stopped about halfway through this, and I had to grab a drink, and I said, where do you want to go? What do you want to talk about next? And then we sort of talked about this. I didn't know anything of the story. I'm like, all right, hold up. So we were almost to the point where it was like,
I was gonna go home.
yeah, I don't know what else we're going to talk about. And then we start to all of a sudden talk about this, and this is one of the reasons why I love podcasts so much.
Yeah.
Is not only is this super interesting, it's a great story, but there's probably somebody listening somewhere that's going to catch a
I
nugget.
promise you that there is.
They'll hear this and be like, holy shit, I'm dealing with this too, or I'm dealing
Yeah.
with something similar, and all right, well, if he did it, then maybe I can.
Yep. That's it.
White
Or maybe
knuckle
they're
this son of a
gonna run
bitch.
into their kid's room and drag him out by his ass. And
Right.
my one friend used to say, when I got into about 15, 20 day area, he's like, do I need to come and sit on your chest tonight? Because I'll do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, I think I'm
Got
I'm
this.
good. I'm good. And the one good thing about this medicine is, for me anyway, and another person I've talked to that went away and got treatment for it, you don't desire it ever again.
Really?
It's really weird. It doesn't have that, at least for me. My
Right.
body forgot what that was like, so I don't desire it. People
Just
are like,
moved on.
"Oh, what about cravings? How you doing?" Like a couple months in, and I'm like, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. It's funny you asked
Right.
me, but I don't have that. That was in that 5 to 15 day range, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
That my body was really craving for it. But other than that, if there's one positive to that crap, it's that.
You powered through there, and it's
just
good.
you forget what it feels like once it completely cycles through your system.
Right.
So yeah, it was like day 48, 49, and 50. We went camping, and I borrowed my buddy's grandma's 82 pop-up camper, and I hadn't slept in 47 days really. It was very intermittent. And out of Cayuga, I got 3 nights in that camper at 8 or 9 hours, and I came out of it on day 52, and I was like, "Holy cow, it's over!
I'm good.
Holy shit, it's over!" And then it still kind of lingered sporadically, but as the time went on, now I sleep like a baby.
That's awesome. Dude.
I get up at 4 now, or 3:40, or 4:20, or I'm up pretty early, but I go to bed early too. So I'm just thankful to get 6 hours. And then a guy said, when you turn 40, that's all you really need. He goes, it's funny. That might just be 40.
Right.
That might not be the
Right.
what you went through now after 22 months. So you require less now. So
It's awesome, dude.
yeah, I don't know.
Well, sir, this is fun.
Yeah.
I didn't expect this to go.
Maybe we'll do
here.
a recap.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, thanks for coming in, man.
Yep,
I really
thanks.
appreciate it.
Yep.
So, see ya.
Next time I'll give you my expertise on fixing diesel engines.
All right. See you, pal.